have a rather toxic relationship with Home Assistant in that I keep trying to fix her, and she's a raging alcoholic that hates me.
Why can't you fix me? Reed from Smart Home Solver is a better YouTuber than you. I bet Reed from Smart Home Solver can fix me. You're a useless piece of I've always hated you. Your mother is an idiot. My mother is always...
Right this second, I have TUYA local lights in this room that won't turn off. And then sometimes will turn off. Just fine. It's the most bizarre thing in the world. I've got a LED strip at the front of the house, and the LED strip at the front of the house comes on at 20% brightness. Sometimes. Why? I never told it to. It just does. I've also got some bulbs at the end of the garden connected to a smart Zigbee plug socket, and this thing sometimes is in range and sometimes is out of range. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. And a whole host of other bizarre Home Assistant issues to solve. But let me be clear, this video is not a Home Assistant hit piece at all. I could never leave her. Part of me likes the abuse. And this video is a little bit of a misnomer, and we'll talk more about how it's a misnomer shortly. In the meantime, I'm just thinking, could I cheat on her just a little bit? Oh my god, it's so cute. So bloody cute! Thanks to Hubitat for sponsoring today's video and for sending me their Hubitat C8. This video is biased, and I will not stand by while you slander the good name of Home Assistant! Home Assistant! Home Assistant! Home Assistant! Home Assistant! Please hear me out. This video is not what you think. Today, I've got my hands on the Hubitat Elevation C8, and this little beast is Hubitat's 4th generation smart home hub. It has built-in Zigbee 3.0 and Z-Wave 800 antennas, and will be supporting Matter later in the year. And what I plan to move away from my current Home Assistant setup is the hardware aspect, and some of the software aspect. And it's all because of these little rabbit ears, which aren't at all cute. So bloody cute! And it's these rabbit ears that are the biggest talking point of the new hub over the old one, because in conjunction with the improved radios that Hubitat have put in this thing, the antennas give the hub an increased range and lower RF latency. And existing users are saying that since upgrading to this new hub, they no longer need Zigbee and Z-Wave repeater devices at all. This chap claims to have a 3,000 square foot house and has gone down from 3 to 4 hops on his repeaters down to 0 to 1 hops. So naturally, I wanted to check this out for a 3,000 square foot house. Who has a 3,000 square foot house? I've got a 3,000 square foot yacht. Bezos. I don't have a 3,000 square foot house, but I did put this thing to the test using my meager 1,200 feet of house by walking to the end of my garden. I'm so far away from the house. Oh my goodness. And this is in no small part thanks to the fact that the C8 has the latest Z-Wave 800 radio baked in. But I have also had a similar experience with my Zigbee devices thanks to its Zigbee 3.0 radio. No way. No way. That's insanity. Oh my goodness. I don't believe it works. You have no idea how long I've waited for that to work with Home Assistant. But I think the Z-Wave 800 radio is probably the most interesting thing here, because the Z-Wave Alliance are claiming that future Z-Wave devices will have a range of 1.5 miles, because Z-Wave 800's technology is apparently going to be insane. There are things that Home Assistant can do that Hubitat simply can't, and we'll talk more about what those things are later on in the video. But I think the easiest analogy here is Apple versus Windows. Sure, you can build an awesome Windows PC yourself and actually get it to do more things than the Apple Mac can do, but the Apple Mac is a purpose-built system and therefore it's more reliable, and that's exactly what you're going to be looking at today.
I knew he turned into an Apple. I told you he turned into an Apple fanboy. It's disgusting. And yes, I've got a cold sore too. It's just a coincidence.
So I decided to give this thing a real challenge. In my hallway, I have a 3-gang Zigbee light switch from TUYA at the bottom of the stairs, a battery-powered Z-Wave quad mote from AOTech at the top of the stairs, an ancient TUYA Zigbee LED strip over the front of my porch, a TUYA Zigbee motion sensor for turning the upstairs lights on when there is movement, an IKEA Zigbee bulb, which are notorious for ignoring the pairing process, an Ajax bulb, which is a Zigbee bulb that Hubitat are unlikely to have ever even heard of, and a bulb in the ceiling from Philips. Excuse me. Sorry, Philips. Sorry. Philips. A bulb from the Netherlands. The IKEA bulb was a pain in the ass, and as usual required me to hold my hub right up against it to get it paired. I had to do the same thing with Home Assistant, but this brings me on to another advantage of the C8. Because the new Hubitat C8 has Wi-Fi built in, I was able to just use a power extension to get the job done. The other devices all paired without issue directly to Hubitat using their really easy pairing process, but there was a problem. And this is a problem that I didn't have in Home Assistant.
I knew it!
Although Hubitat was able to recognize both the IKEA and the Ajax bulbs, and was then able to control them to turn them on and off, it couldn't change the color temperature between cool white and warm white. And this is because Hubitat have not written specific drivers for these two bulbs. However, Hubitat is a very open platform, and it's designed to allow complete nerds to write their own custom drivers, and it was literally then, for me, a case of copying and pasting a driver from the Hubitat community forum into the Hubitat drivers code section, and then pressing save. Once I did that for the IKEA driver I'd found online, I was able to tell the hub to use the IKEA driver, and then everything worked perfectly. Bizarrely enough, the IKEA driver also worked for the Ajax bulb. All I did was tell the Ajax bulb, use the IKEA driver, and it fixed that too. 2 birds, 1 stone. The porch LED strip unfortunately also seemed to have a bit of a toxic relationship with Home Assistant and wouldn't let it go.
Now I had the time of my...
That was hell on earth to make work. Flippin' heck. It took an hour of diagnostics to get this thing to actually communicate with Hubitat and stop communicating with Home Assistant. I unplugged Home Assistant and it still would not pair. I had to do all sorts of messing around and it took an eternity. But once I got it working, it was quicker than Home Assistant, and more importantly, it turned the brightness to 100% every time, not 20%. It's still the weirdest issue ever. Similarly, such a weird word. Get to the point. In a similar way to that, the automation for the quad mote was also much faster than it was when I was using it with Home Assistant. There is a little bit of a learning curve to using automations in Hubitat, but only if you're new to smart homes. If you've used Home Assistant, you'll find it really, really straightforward, and it is equally, if not more powerful. As proven by my fairly complicated setup in the hallway, there is a lot more to it than what I've discussed already to do with making sure certain things happen at night versus what happens in the day, not just simply for coming on and not coming on depending on whether it's day or night, but also for the early hours of the morning when I get up to go to the bathroom. All that stuff happens quite differently, and I've been able to do that very, very easily. And this brings me on to my next point. I can't leave her. I can't do it. There is no leaving her. So abusive. But there is a halfway solution. So I can use the Hubitat to do all of the physical connectivity aspect of my automation. Instead of using Home Assistant, I will use Hubitat to control all of my lights as I walk past motion sensors, for example. I also plan to use the Hubitat Alexa skill instead of using the Home Assistant Alexa skill, because the Hubitat Alexa skill is entirely free, whereas the Home Assistant is based on a subscription monthly. More importantly, some clever sod has created a Hubitat integration for Home Assistant, and I plan on having a threesome.
Now
I haven't tried it yet, but I think I will be able to use the Home Assistant dashboard instead of the Hubitat dashboard, because I think the Home Assistant dashboard is prettier, in my personal opinion. I will also still be able to use Home Assistant for things like my BROADLINK RM Pro, which isn't supported in Hubitat, and my TUYA Wi-Fi gear, which also isn't supported in Hubitat. Home Assistant will still turn on my TVs using network requests, and it'll do a few other bits and bobs. But Hubitat and its little rabbit ears are going to do all of the physically connected devices to get those things to turn on as I enter a room, for example. And so this is the grand plan. Not only does this thing have Wi-Fi, which means that I can stick it slap bang in the middle of my house, it also has much more powerful Zigbee and Z-Wave antennas than my current Home Assistant setup, which means I'm going to have fantastic range and far more reliability, whilst still being able to use all the things that are great about Home Assistant. How you like them apples? Home Assistant! Thought you might say that. Hubitat is not perfect. It still struggles with some AQARA Zigbee devices, it still can't control TUYA Wi-Fi, and at time of filming, there's no BROADLINK integration. But what it does do is work more reliably than Home Assistant at everything that it is good at, and with greater range than any of the Zigbee or Z-Wave dongles that I've tried. It works with Apple HomeKit, Google Home, If This Then That, and Amazon Alexa, and it does so entirely without subscription. And at its current price tag of $150, you're getting an awful lot of physical hardware in a tiny little package. My mate Pete at Hubitat says that Hubitat C5 and C7 users can migrate all of their existing automations, apps and devices to the C8 using a free migration tool. If you're interested in picking one of these things up, as usual, there are links in the description as to where you can do that. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. That will tell YouTube's algorithms it was a good video, more people should see it. If you want to see some more of this guy, hit that subscribe button and ding that bell. If you ding the bell, it lets YouTube know that you want to be notified when I upload videos. These incredible people running up your screen are my patrons from Patreon, and without them, I would not be doing this. I have had a hell of a month. This has been the worst month probably since I started doing YouTube, and if it wasn't for these guys, I would not be doing this at all. If you want to be one of those incredible people, you can do that at either Patreon or buy me a one-off beer at PayPal, and either way, I'll genuinely love you forever. These are my Facebooks and my Twitters and my Instagrams and my TikToks too. Come and hang out there and we can be best friends. See you next time. Home Assistant! I hope Nisha's not an important meeting downstairs.